What is up, guys? My name is Logan Tremellen, and this is the Defying Odds podcast. This is another episode where it's just me, but I want to get into something that is very interesting. And when I'm trying to think of ideas for this podcast, it's just things that I truly believe in, things that I truly just believe to my core and have been, already doing or already just executing on in my life. This thing, what I'm about to talk about in this little pod, literally just hit me in the face, basically, when I was working on my computer. I was in the middle of an edit, and while the video was exporting, I looked up Gary Vee on YouTube. Gary Vee, somebody who I think I probably mentioned him in every single podcast now. But he said something along the lines of you have to be accountable, and it just got my brain going of something that I am always doing, and I see other people always doing wrongfully. And it comes down to really just one big mindset shift, and that is just don't be a victim. Don't blame things in your life. Don't blame things that are going wrong on anything else. And I think we see a lot of that today. There's so much demonization and toxicity in our culture nowadays where, like, if anything's going wrong, I mean, if you get on social media, you see it, where people are blaming politics, or they're blaming people, or they're blaming organizations, or they're blaming their brother or their cousin or their uncle, or everybody. Everybody is blaming something or someone for a thing that they don't have in their life. Everybody's doing it. And I'm gonna go a little bit into more detail of like how this has helped me and how I've seen it in other people and how I understand that it really, really holds people back. I've always been one, at least after my first surgery, I've been one to really take control, and I'm constantly just never blaming anybody else, And I mean, there have been times in my life where it was tough, for people who don't know my story. At 16 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I lost like 40 pounds. I was in the hospital for a month and a half. I was in a 9-day coma where I had 5 surgeries. And that was just one of 3 times where I got really sick. Another time I was at Florida State University. I dropped out. I got stuck in bed for literally 3 months straight, and I lost 40 pounds. I had to come back home, barely missed surgery. Had to build everything back from then. And then the third time I moved to New York City, had to move back home from New York City because I got really sick again, lost another 40 pounds. And this time I did end up getting surgery. A year and a half after that, that entire year and a half period, I had to live my life with an ostomy bag, basically a bag attached to the outside of your intestine, like the outside of your body, that is connected to your intestines. And I'm going to the bathroom through a bag, and through that year and a half, I was working out and putting on muscle and taking charge of my life. I wasn't blaming anybody because I was in full control. And really, that is a rare mindset today. And I think I just made a podcast on 2 things, 2 things that have moved me forward. 1, willingness to be uncomfortable. 2, raising my standards. But this is a mindset that is necessary in order to have success or achievement or fulfillment in really any area of your life, because you're not going to do anything if you're just blaming other people. And I see this so much, but I've always just managed to take control of my life because I'm not blaming anybody but myself. It is always my fault, even if it's not my fault. And I'm saying things in my life are my fault because there's 2, things. There's 1, things you can control and things you can't control. If it's something that you actually can't control, like law or things that have already happened, things that are in the past, then there is 0 reason to even think about them. The more you focus on things you can't control, the more stressed, the more anxious, the more angry you're going to be in life. The more you can focus on things that you can control, that That's where all good comes from life. Focusing on things that you can control. And I've always managed to do that, you know? And those things that I can control, I never blame other people. Like my health, regardless of if I was in the hospital, regardless if I was on my deathbed, regardless if I had an ostomy bag attached to the side of my body, I wasn't blaming the doctors. I wasn't blaming God. I wasn't blaming anybody for giving me that adversity, for giving me that hard times, for giving me all of those problems that came with it. You know, waking up I had to wake up every 3 hours, even throughout the night, to empty the bag, you know. I had to get up early and work out first thing in the morning because I couldn't work out once I started digesting food. I could only eat like very specific foods, you know. And on top of dealing with all these health issues, I was also making sure to eat a ton of healthy food, you know, nutritious food. And I was also working out 6 days a week. And I was also building an action sports video production on the side. There was so much going on in my life. And I was I had full control. And it was not easy. Don't get me wrong. But it was in my control. This is obviously something I'm pretty passionate about. But I want to go into a recent story of something that I really, really, really messed up on. And it honestly would have made my life over the past year substantially easier. And outside of 2 people, my best friend and my mom, nobody else knows about this. And I have not wanted to bring it up. Not because I'm scared, but just because I didn't want to basically point fingers at this person. But it's not their fault. You know, it is truly my fault. I got into a business deal where I was doing consistent work for somebody, and I was putting out $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 of expenses a month not a month, but a shoot to produce these videos. So I had significant overhead, and I was producing these videos for them, and I was honestly, 1, in love with the process, and 2, I really liked the client. So I was in no rush to be paid because I'm like, look, I trust them. You know, they're a friend. I don't have to worry about them not paying. And that went on and on and on until the end of the year when we were done shooting. The projects were done. I already gave the deliverables to the client. I'd never made contracts, and I never received any money. Long story short, I worked for a client for basically a year straight, and I might have received $9,000 in the total, and I think the total invoice was close to 40. So over the past 2 years, I did work for a client, and because my fault, you know, I did not do contracts. I did not make it clear. Yes, I should have communicated better. Yes, I shouldn't have kept on working without getting paid, but it was 100% my fault that I missed out. And I mean, I don't know if I will ever get paid, but I missed out on that $30,000 of money. And I am totally in the hole because I was spending around $2,000 per shoot. And I received, you know, 9 for the whole year. And so many people, like I know people who have been in a very similar situation as me, where they've not even had nearly the overhead that I did in this situation, but they did work for clients and delivered the deliverables and never got paid. That actually happens all the time. And I always felt bad about doing contracts, and I still really don't do contracts, but obviously I'm never going to get myself in this situation again. But I know people in this who have done that, exactly that, and they 100% blame the other person, you know? They just directly go to call out the person. They even make it public online that like these companies didn't pay me or this person didn't pay me. I'm like, look, one, I would really be lowering the decency of myself if I did that, you know? Like, I'm never going to call somebody out for that. But you can't blame them because one, you should have made a contract, which I didn't. Two, I should have communicated better. And three, I should have never kept working without receiving at least a portion of the payment. And if you just hear this story, you're listening this far, you really understand, you should understand that I am really one to blame myself for everything. I am never one to play the victim. The victim mindset will crush you in life. So yeah, there were times this year where I was like, okay, once this payment comes through, then I can hire my best friend and that'll give me the money to pay him for the whole year. And honestly, it would have made my life substantially easier. I wouldn't have had the cash flow problems that I have had over the past year, which in a growing business, cash flow is always the issue. But it was all my fault. And honestly, even when I was going through it, I'm like, look, this $30,000 in my bank account would make my life so much easier, But I honestly don't think I would have done as well. I would have understood business. I would have just been more wasteful, I wouldn't have been as resourceful. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I just hope that client that hasn't paid me yet, and I hope they do, I hope that the money isn't just being wasted. I hope that they're actually doing something with it. And honestly, hopefully they're doing something with it that is more important than paying me and not just being rude. So I want to go into a little bit of what I've seen in how this victim mindset can literally just destroy you. And I don't think my best friend Noah will listen to this, but I'm going to bring him into this because this is something that I see him do often. And if he listens to this, then yeah, I'm calling you out. But Noah, my best friend, he works for me full time. I don't know what it is, but there is at least once a day where there's a situation where he will just bring something up and I take it as complaining. I don't know if it's from him, if it's his version of complaining, but he will point something out that is not right in life. And it could be something as stupid as the dog hasn't been fed yet. The dog hasn't been taken outside. The trash hasn't been taken out. It's just like little things like that. And he will point them out. And I'm like, okay, well, do them. He's a roommate of ours. That is a super small scale of this, where I just see people point things out that are wrong and they have full control over getting rid of it or fixing the issue. And that's just a small scale. This can boil down to people's lives, like your health and your wellness and your bank account and your financial situation and your investment portfolio or your job or the car you drive or literally anything in your life. Everybody finds something to complain about, when in reality, pretty much everything you're complaining about is in your control. And if it's not in your control, then you should never be focusing on it. And it's honestly as simple as that. And this is how I live my life on a daily basis, where I wake up and I'm like, okay, what are the things that matter in my life? For me right now, it's growing relationships, growing the business. Honestly, that's pretty much taking care of my body, And I have full control over all three of those things. So I'm always focusing on like, okay, what's the best thing that I can do today to grow my body, to improve my health, my vitality? What's the best thing that I can do today to grow the business? And what's the best thing that I can do today to grow my relationships? And I do them. There are little things along the way that come up, little fires, and I put them out as fast as possible. And everything else really doesn't matter. I never check the weather. This is just funny. I never check the weather. I never look at the news. I never watch things on the internet that I just are useless. And I think that is a very big strength that I have in my life. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. Just don't fall into the victim mindset. Focus on things that you can control and actually control them. Actually be accountable, be self-aware, and take control of your life. You know, if you have a job that you don't like, quit. If you're not happy with your body, start working out. I'm not saying all these things are easy, but they're not complicated. So there's no reason to be complaining. You're in control. Sweet. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I appreciate you watching. That is it. That is the end of this podcast. This is Defying Odds podcast by Logan Tremellen. That's me. I really appreciate you listening this far. If you have, like the video if you're on YouTube, leave a comment, subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version, please leave a rating. I don't think I've asked for ratings, and I really don't care because I put this out for me. But I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.